I said, oh, what shall I do? Maharishi told me to go to the president.
Not many people are given that task at the age of 20, I can tell you that.
So I wrote a letter.
You wrote a letter, okay.
I wrote a letter to the prime minister. I would like to talk to the president.
You were built for greatness, and I want to help you succeed.
Welcome to the Sigurd Vedal Show.
Welcome back to the show. I'm excited. This episode, we're going to talk about Transcendental Meditation. What is it? What makes it different than the other meditation types? I've personally been practicing meditation types, several of them, for the last 10 years in my life. They have a very, very important function in my life. You know the famous saying, if you own the mornings, you own the day. It's part of my morning routine. And recently, I have been taught Transcendental Meditation. We're going to be talking about how can it help you sleep better, focus better, learn better, perform better, build businesses better, become a millionaire better. So everything you dream of will become better with Transcendental Meditation, in my opinion. You're going to get all the juice on what it is from my great friend and Transcendental Meditation mentor, Tony Antal.
Thank you, Sigurd.
Welcome to the show. You have been practicing and teaching Transcendental Meditation for how many years?
Yes, I learned the meditation about 30 years ago.
30 years ago.
Just 30 years ago in October. And I became a teacher of this method when I was 20. So now it's about 25 years now.
Did you count how many you've helped?
Yeah, I was traveling a lot, not really counting, but a lot.
Hundreds or thousands?
Yes,
thousands.
Yes.
That's an impact. Not many people can say that about their lives. How old are you now?
I'm 40.
45.
Sometimes people ask me about this, and I actually don't feel like that much. Sometimes the number comes to me like a 32 or something like that.
I know.
But it's actually 45.
I still think I'm 28, or something.
Yes.
Just with more experience. That's what we kind of say, right? I would really like to hear more about you and your background, your story, right? So,
okay. How did I start?
Let's start with you actually enrolling to become a doctor. Tell me what happened. Tell me, what was your plan? Did you have any plans? Did you know what you wanted to become?
No, actually, I never knew what I would like to be in my childhood. It was very open for me. I was very open to everything, to science, to math, to physics. I really liked numbers.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid, like in kindergarten, I was already like adding up like 3-digit numbers. My father would actually show off with me that in the surroundings that, oh, Tony, tell me what is 322 plus 655 at the age of 6. And I was telling the answer. So
you're good with numbers.
I think that was one of my favorite things. So I was a good student. I attended a very good high school and studied a lot. I enjoyed a lot. But I was a little bit anxious sometimes. When the tests came, I kind of felt that my hand is a little bit wetty and all that knowledge which I had, it was not coming out.
Okay, you felt it was suppressing your ability to perform.
Yes, now I know it was all the stress reaction which kind of inhibited me. So at the age of 15, I saw a poster that TM really helps in improving the grade in school. And I said, okay.
TM, you mean Transcendental Meditation?
Yes, Transcendental Meditation.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I don't really need to improve because I was straight A's, but if I could shorten the time of studying and I could play more tennis, that would be great. So that was the initial motivation for me to learn TM. And it really helped me.
But how did you go about it? Like, explain the process. Did you call a number or you know?
At that time, there were no Hungarian TM teachers. It was at the time when Hungary was changing politically in the 89, 90s. And teachers from abroad, Maharishi actually sent teachers from many different locations to help the transition of Hungary to teach.
Because he wanted to kind of spread this message and spread these methods.
Yes, and more people, actually, now I know that more and more people experiencing this pure consciousness, this very nice, settled, like silent bliss level of consciousness. It does help the collective consciousness too. So at that time, I was listening to an introductory talk. His name is Richard Dalby. I really thank him coming to Hungary at that time. And when he was talking about it, I just felt, this is it. I really want to have this. It sounded easy to access and kind of effective. And this is all what I was looking for. And after 3 weeks, I started to notice that my hands are dry when I'm in the test situation. And
so already in a very short period of time, after you started practicing TM or Transcendental Meditation, how long of a time method did it take for you until you started actually noticing, like you mentioned, the dry hands during tests and stuff?
It was about 3 weeks.
3 weeks. Wow.
3 weeks. It was very natural for me. For some people, when I teach Transcendental Meditation, it's very magical right from the beginning. For other, it's like more gentle and then a breakthrough. For me, it was more like the later one. So I kind of felt okay. It was nice, but nothing like really fancy, just natural. But physiologically, the effects started to come. And that was actually a really proof for me that it's not about programming yourself, and it's not about how to imagine yourself in a stress situation, like visualizing that you will be good. And it's actually physiologically affects your system on a very deep level.
Because there's a lot of people out there that are skeptic, right? Like even with normal meditation. But of course, I do perceive that there is a wave. And of course, social media is part of that wave. It's easier for individuals to spread their messages across, through the world. That's one of the good things about social media. There's a long list of things that might be questioned and might not be so good. But, I believe that social media are pipes. They give us the ability to put certain things through those pipes, right? And either we put good things through them or we put bad things, but we kind of control as human beings the same way we control what we allow on television or what we allow on certain print medias. We can control social media. So I do believe that, there is this wave where, talking to a lot of entrepreneurs, fellow entrepreneurs and successful people out there, and even athletes, there's no doubt that they are all more or less having a spiritual side, right? They have a lot of them are practicing the law of attraction. A lot of them are, or most of them are practicing meditation.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, it's very popular now, and much easier to talk about meditation now than back in 30 years ago.
For sure. And I guess it was a challenge for religion as well, right? It's been a challenge for religion, like, in terms of trying to get it into the school system, because for sure, this is, in my view, the school. I have 3 sons, and there is a lot of things missing in terms of the spiritual side, in terms of, being able to meditate, being able to control your mind. How do you see this in Hungary? Like, is it starting to loosen up here a little bit, or?
Yes, there is a lot of misunderstanding about meditation, that it's sometimes it's considered religious method, but TM is not a religion. It's just a very simple practice. It does come from an age-old tradition which originates in India. Yeah. So sometimes this can give a little confusion, but it's much older than any religion actually.
But let's rewind back. I still want to go back to where you were learning Transcendental Meditation. Where were you in that life stage?
Because it was very easy for me to study, my parents and everybody. My mother was a doctor, my uncle was heading a hospital. So I was kind of predestined to become a doctor.
Yeah, and so I was kind of following in their path.
Yes,
sense, right.
I never really liked the idea.
Okay.
But
Same as me.
It was something like little pressure in that direction, and but inside I felt that man, I don't really want to be like all the time near near very sick people. It was very hard for me. I was a little more sensitive, and even when I went to medical school, we had a practice session, and when I saw all these all that suffering diseases bring to people, I the main idea was for me that I want to prevent this of happening. And there are so many people are already becoming a doctor, but so few people want to prevent situations like that.
Yeah, they're in treating the symptoms and treating the illnesses, right? And very few people are actually curing the original and the reasons for why people are actually getting sick in the first place.
Yes, and I think consciousness is the main player here.
So basically attending medicine school, you want to follow in the path of your parents. Of course, they're your compass, like all parents are. And you are now attending university, and at the same time, you decided to then learn TM, right? You saw the poster about the benefits.
Yes, actually, that was in high school.
That was in high school.
High school.
So you learned TM in high school.
I learned TM in high school.
And you're already practicing it in medicine school, right?
Yeah, that was really helping me. You know, in medicine, sometimes the days are very heavy. You know, you start in the morning, finish late.
Yeah, for sure.
And I do remember one time when I went to school and all the anatomy classes and all that class, and after I was just like totally felt wasted, like exhausted,
yeah,
empty. And then I sat down to meditate, and after 20 minutes, just like the day restarted, and I felt like, wow, this is something powerful. And I did have questions, like after even 3 weeks, I kind of felt I'm not in the right place at the right time.
Okay.
I did my best. You know, I was straight A's even in the first semester. I gave myself some time. Okay, parents want it. I don't want it, but maybe let's do it. So I had straight A's in the first semester, and then I said, okay, maybe I finished 1 year, so I finished the second semester. But then I became like really, I had to move.
But I mean, that's powerful, right? I mean, if you look at most kids out there, most 20-year-olds, most teens out there, they don't really know what they want to do with their lives. Nobody really knows at that age. I mean, I had no clue, you know? And in most cases, the parents are kind of pushing certain things to them, right? Certain values, certain pathways that you need to take. So what I find great about your story is, and considering what you've actually accomplished through your life, is that at that moment, at a young age, you were able to not let your inner voice get drowned, right, by other people around you. You were doing what was expected of you, but then you realized this wasn't something for you, and you basically jumped off. You took action, right? You didn't allow yourself to be suppressed and push through something that you didn't really enjoy doing. And I really have a lot of respect for that, because that's very much a strong power when you have that from parents. I'm talking to and coaching a lot of young students, and there's a lot of students which are forced to university, a lot of students which have, you know, literally been told, if you don't go through school, you won't get any inheritance of me. You know, you have to become this type of position or take this type of education because that's what we do. And I think there's a lot of miserable people out there, because when they come out on the other end, out of university, they're practicing something that they might not be passionate about. And I think there's nothing as scary as a doctor, educated, which people will put their, you know, lives in their hands, and they might not even enjoy their work, because if you don't enjoy something, it's a high discipline cost, right? It's a high cost to do whatever you're doing because you don't enjoy it. But when you love doing it, you can do it all day long. Probably how it is with you and TM, right? Like when you're, you know, looking into research about TM, you're learning more about TM, you're practicing TM. It's a lifestyle for you, right?
It is a lifestyle, and you know, it's such a great joy when actually we went back to university and taught kids about TM, those who would like to become a doctor. And I do have a lot of admiration for everyone, and everybody should finish their their studies which they like. It's with TM it will become easier for sure, and I saw that result when we actually taught medical students, nurses who are studying to become nurses, that the psychology department measured them before and 3 months after. And what they measured that just after 3 months of practice, depression level go down, anxiety level go down, inner happiness feeling kind of opens up. And one of the most dominant experience they get, that they feel less stressed in a stressful environment. And that's very important for a doctor, for even a student, but actually for everyone. No, I mean, being a businessman, there is always something happening.
Yeah, there's always dark clouds. You're trying to predict the dark clouds, you know.
And in this world now, there's very little silence left in people. Sometimes it's about social media too. You know, there's all these influences and being all the time available in social media. People just have a lot of activity in their life, and silence is gone. Yeah. And TM, I think, is a very simple tool just to bring back that silence, bring that balance back to life. And when you have that balance, that you are dynamic, and also inside you have that level of silence, then you are out of the field of misery. Yeah. It's even a stressful situation, you will be okay with it. You will handle it. It's not that you are numb to the environment. You just become more like a master of it than the slave of it.
You're able to control your emotions at a better level in terms of whatever challenge you're having, either it's athleticism or it's a challenge in business or in life in general, because life can be challenging. You don't have to run businesses for life to be challenging, and it's actually a tool. It's almost like a toolbox, and you have that extra screwdriver which nobody else has, to be able to turn down the stress level, or let's go to sleep quicker, because it helps a lot of things in terms of both sleep issues, depression. And being aware also gives that extra dimension on life, in my view. It's almost like, when you watch the black and white movies from World War II, there are some amazing movies and footage from those times, but there was a period where I actually saw these colored for the first time. And they put together this series on Netflix, and it's very much like that when you start practicing awareness and mindfulness, at least that was for me when I started doing this 10 years ago when my father died. It was very much like you started to see things and think about things around you that you didn't really notice before in your everyday life. You were just running around doing your things, picking up the kids, driving them to school, doing homework, fixing the garden, working, squeezing in the time schedule, right? But, seeing life around you as, when you're starting to practice TM and meditation and mindfulness, it's amazing. And I really wish that for a lot of people, and I wish that as part of our school system.
Yes, moments of beauty come during the
does,
life, and
for sure,
it's very great tool, just as you said, for top achievers. I think in order to be on the top of your game, and not that the high level of activity eats you up, tools like TM and meditation, it's like almost mandatory. But even for our kids, kids are sometimes very stressed. Feeling a lot of stress. They are happy. Most of these young university students, they felt very happy. And when I asked them, could they rate their stress level from 1 and 10? And they said 11, 12.
Wow.
So they are actually, and I heard from teachers, sometimes they faint on exams. I think we can do better than that.
We can.
We could introduce into educational system tools which help the student to become much more stress resistant.
Yeah, I agree.
Stress safe.
Because in reality, what can you do without the tools? Like if you're stressed, you're not sleeping good. You can't control your mind. I mean, any problems thrown at you, it's almost like being handcuffed a little bit. You won't be able to tackle it's like throwing tennis balls at you, Tony, and you're having your hands tied up, right? You're not able to protect yourself. It's like you're missing something, because literally everything in reality, in your mind, everything, your coding of experiences, communication, tackling any problem, it all relates to your mind game, and it relates to how you control your emotions, right? Because everybody has lost the temper sometime. Nothing pretty comes out of that. So being able to, control your mind, being able to keep that distance a little bit from the problems is something that I'm at least noticing TM helped with me. I'm able to see things a little bit more distant than before.
And there is a psychological reason for that.
Okay.
Here is our brain. Okay, so this is this part of the brain, this frontal part is called the prefrontal cortex. Prefrontal cortex. This is called like the CEO of our brain. Why? Because it's very much connected to all the other areas of the brain activity and all the higher level functioning which we like about, like controlling emotions and planning and the sense of self. What makes us human, basically. A lot of the centers for that is in this prefrontal cortex. But there is also a center for stress and the flight or flight reaction. It's called the amygdala, somewhere here. And when you are in the flight or flight mode, you know, when you experience flight or flight mode, this amygdala kicks in, and the resources from the prefrontal cortex a little bit directed to lower levels of activity. I mean, for some time, stress is good. It brings you up to speed, it motivates you, some challenge, but actually we could rather call that a challenge. Actually, the human brain and the prefrontal cortex during challenging situation, it works actually even faster and the neurons are feeling good. But there is a point when it changes, when you start to feel, oh, maybe it's a little too much. I won't be able to study all that much until the exam time, or, oh my God, my business, everything is falling down. It's just too much. I cannot handle. Then suddenly this flight or flight reaction kicks in. And from all the big energy and big ideas, suddenly you feel no energy, no ideas. You want to flee away from the situation. Yep. And what TM does is actually just the opposite physiologically. And actually it can be measured with MRI and all these things, that the prefrontal cortex gets some extra blood flow and brings nourishment to your CEO of the brain. And the amygdala, the stress level and those connected to stress reaction, that activity goes down. So actually there is a physiological mechanism, and we know quite a lot of it. TM is one of the most scientifically studied meditation program in the world.
I think there's a lot of people out there listening right now who, you know, maybe they haven't even heard about meditation. So we can get to that soon. But can you just quickly and in an easy way explain, you know, where did TM come from and what is it?
We can understand all the different meditation techniques. It actually falls into 3-4 categories. Mm-hmm. And we can put almost all of them. And this is according to science too. There are different brain waves pattern depending on what kind of meditation practice you are practicing. So everybody's talking, okay, I am meditating, being closed. But what you are doing when your eyes is closed, it does matter because it can use different areas of your brain. What happens, let's imagine your mind like an ocean. The surface level of the mind is just that, you know, that lot of thoughts, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, lot of activity, mental activity on the surface. Just like in the ocean, on the surface, there's always waves,
Yep.
there's always something.
Never stops.
Never stops. And then, but in the bottom, actually, if you do a little dive, in the bottom of the ocean is very silent. And actually, thoughts are like bubbles when they come up to the surface. Then you start to notice them. Oh, I have a thought. This is what we call the conscious awareness. Yep. How that thought arrived, it's not so, we don't even know where the thoughts are coming from. You know, if you are thinking about where are my thoughts are coming from? I mean, we know that it's not coming from the table. It's somewhere from within. But we are not so much aware. And what TM does, TM, in the T, in TM, it stands for Transcendental Meditation. It's not a trance state. at all. It just means going beyond that. What we are going beyond? We are going beyond the surface level of mental activity to the finer levels of mental activity, finer levels, and eventually transcend even the finest level of activity. And then where we arrive? We arrive to a state of consciousness which is not aware of any thought or feeling, not directed outside to an experience, but it's fully aware of itself. So consciousness is in this state, it's called pure consciousness or transcendental consciousness. Consciousness is actually self-referral here. So not object referral like seeing an object or thinking a thought. It's just aware of itself. It's just like a silent, blissful state of consciousness, like coming home. It feels like this is the process of transcending.
When you're in the solarium, you're in for example, a massage or something. Sometimes you fall asleep a little bit halfway, right? Where you're actually awake, but you're not really awake.
Yeah, and it's
right?
actually not really sleep.
It's not really sleep.
It's not really sleep because
you're there and you're feeling the massage, but you're kind of you're
in a very settled state.
Is that very much this area here in your view, or how do you define that area? I'm just trying to get a picture. I mean, I know how it feels because I'm practicing it.
How to tell.
But how can we describe this to people so they actually can have something which they are aware of, which they've experienced, at least something close?
There's two qualities which stand out. It's silent and it's wakeful. So it's like a restful alertness. This is actually how the scientists first described this state as a fourth major state of consciousness, separate from sleeping, dreaming, and waking state. That actually it's something different. I draw a little table here for you and for everyone. So there are 2 rows, 2 columns. If we have that mental activity, we have a plus here, if not minus. So what is that state of consciousness? Let's say
self. What is the column for self?
Self meaning the sense of self.
Okay,
like
you're
I, the sense of being.
Being me. Got it.
Okay, so there is waking, dreaming, and sleep. Let's try to put these 3 major states of consciousness into this table. What is that state of consciousness which doesn't have the sense of self? You are not so much aware of yourself during that.
Sleeping.
And you don't have mental activity. Very good. You are quick. There are mental activity, but no sense of self. What would that be?
Dreaming.
Dreaming. Very good. Yeah, sometimes we are a little bit more aware of it, but most of the times it's just going on. You can measure it on EEG. Actually, initially, they thought sleeping is just one state of consciousness. And then when they measured that dreaming has very different brainwave patterns and different physiological activity, they put it as a separate state of consciousness.
By the way, just a side question. Is there a reason for dreaming?
I think many of the information processing what you are gathering during the day is at night, your brain is actually metabolizing it and unstressing some of the stresses like that. So it's actually very important state. When there were some research on that, and actually funny and interesting, but scary also, that when they see the people starting to go into dream state, and they always wake them up to see what happens if the dream state is not available to humans. They did research like that. They get crazy very soon. So dreaming is very essential. So what is when you have the sense of self and you have mental activity too? I guess that's what we are here now.
You're awake, yep.
Yeah, we are
for sure.
Here. And now you can see that there is one square missing, where you have the sense of self, you have the sense of being, but you don't have any mental activity. Now, and this will be the state of pure consciousness. This is like the 4th major state of consciousness.
It's amazing. It makes sense.
Separate from waking, dreaming, and sleeping. So we can put here pure consciousness also. And once you have that, you know, when I was teaching some who are very much learned in current day psychology, professors in university. The first time we met, they would say, consciousness without a content, not possible. It's just consciousness always have something. And we could say that in pure consciousness, it does have some content. It's content of itself. It's just not directed outside. So the process of, let's say, when you are seeing a flower, consciousness has these three roles. You are the observer. There is a process of observation. And there is the process of the object of observation. In this case, a nice flower. Now, if you take away the flower and but unconsciously, you are experiencing the less and less and less of the flower. Eventually, what will remain is there will be no object of attention in your consciousness, but you start to become aware of itself. This is the process of transcending, and that's the main difference of different meditation techniques also. A lot of meditation techniques, either you are focusing on some objects of your attention.
Focus meditation, yeah.
Focus meditation.
Which is typically the Calm app, and all these different apps out there are all focused on focus meditation.
Yes, you are focusing on your breathing, or you are focusing on your visualization or muscles relaxation. Yeah. This is when you are intentionally direct your attention to a certain place, and you try not to allow to wander away your attention. This is the focused attention techniques.
What I perceive very, very different from TM compared to the others is how hard it is actually, with focused meditation to actually stop the mind, right? To stop the surface level. It's always this battle against nature, in my view, right?
Yes, these practices are very hard when you want to focus and you are practicing focused attention. It's not that we want to diminish the effects and the value of these practices, because all the different methods do something, and if they are beneficial, they are beneficial.
For sure.
We make use of whatever we have. But I'm sure this was your experience also, that when your mind is very wavy, when you have a lot of thought, when you have a lot of problems to deal with, it's very hard to focus your attention, because these techniques are much easier done when your mind is already settled. All the other types of, these contemplation types of methods, which is more on the meaning, less focused, but still on the meaning level. It's like swimming in the ocean on the surface level a little bit. All these affirmations, cognitive restructuring, I feel good and I feel happy about myself and about my life, and these are good. They uplift the emotions, they have some benefits. But what is very unique, that when your mind is settling down completely, then your body settles down really a lot with it. And when this settling happens, all the stresses, deep-rooted stresses. Stresses has two levels. One is on the surface level, which may be sleep. You can get rid of it if your sleep is okay. But there are some deep-rooted stresses which stay with you, even if you are sleeping, and you are bringing with you, and it's getting actually accumulated.
So it's not just a mental benefit from this, there's a physical benefit, right? It's measured in the body.
Yes, and that's one of the key. Every meditation practice has some physiological change. Actually, focused meditation produces a lot of gamma brain waves in the mind. These are also, there is a lot of gamma brain waves when you are focusing very intensively on writing your exam. Actually, your mind is working very hard in this. During contemplation and these kind of practices are more theta brain waves. And these theta brain waves, a lot of about memory and processing information and meaning, because you are in the meaning level, often analyzing your practice, what's happening within you, and you try to observe. Or during mindfulness, you start to the whole idea is to observe your thoughts and emotions and body feelings, and not to interfere, just observe. Yeah. But still you are experiencing some activity. So if your mind is active, your physiology will be also active. Yeah. So if your mind is settled down, then the physiology can settle down, and then those deep-rooted stresses can be released. So basically what happens in TM, you jump in the like jumping in the swimming pool. And when you come out, there are water all over the skin. Yeah. So when you come out of this silent kind of blissful level of awareness, it sticks with you, and you bring it into activity, and it brings balance.
Like the water on your body, you're wet after, and then you start slowly drying off. Yeah. And from what you taught me, then of course this effect gets stronger and stronger. So the effect of meditation and that same balance you have, and that clarity you have, that creativity you have, if you're practicing for many, many years, it does develop into a sense where the water is keeping you more and more wet the whole day.
Yes,
sense,
and
right?
no very dynamic activity, even very big dynamic activity won't be able to overshadow the silent level anymore. This is actually what we want, to live the total potential of our consciousness. Not only dynamic, not only silence, but the two together. And this is actually already a state of enlightenment, if it happens, but it's not happening by really like intention. It's not on the basis of.
You can't force it.
It's not. It's a physiological process, also in the nervous system. The wiring is there, but if you are not using, what you don't use.
It's like separate circuits in the house which you haven't connected, and then you start connecting them, and then you start getting some more power.
Maharishi used to have a analogy, and I really like that. If you don't know that you are a millionaire, then what does it? What's the use?
I know.
You don't know. You don't have money. You feel you don't have money. You go out and beg on the street. So once you know the potential, what
is
your
inside
consciousness is.
Yeah, every human being has it inside of them, right? And I mean, back to a little bit, just a short notice here, because I'm training my son in this too. And I've been, of course, he's 8 years old, and I have been doing the focus meditation for him for a while. And he's of course, it's harder with children to get children to stay still, and to, they're moving all the time.
It's not so natural for them.
They're like, oh, and that's, yeah. And it's very unnatural, right? But with TM, it's so much more natural for children too, right?
Yeah, actually, up to the age of 10, we are not teaching kids for the adult meditation technique, because it's not so natural for them to sit still, as you noticed.
Yep.
They will fiddle around a lot, and they just don't feel comfortable. We can teach. We give them a different technique, like a playing technique. They do it with open eyes, and from the age of 3, 4, if we can communicate with them, but I think 4, 5 may be more ideal. Up to the age of 10, they practice this children technique, and it's very good for them, very beneficial, without the kind of a hassle of trying to be still, because they do it while moving sometimes, or by playing around. With open eyes. They don't have to close their eyes. So that's a different. But at the age of 10, they can learn the adult technique, what the parents is doing, but even then they do only for a few much smaller time, because for them the nervous system is so flexible, so moldable. It's enough. We adults, we need some more.
We need to unlearn a lot of things, right?
Yes.
Unlearn. But you were given a task by the master himself. Can you explain who the master is and what kind of a task you were given by him? I find that an amazing story.
This knowledge comes from an age-old tradition. So we got from Mahesh Yogi, but he had a teacher, and he had a teacher.
Generation.
So after generation, this knowledge was kept pure, and now we have the good fortune to enjoy this thing all over the world. All the internet and this broadcast, and if somebody is lucky enough to hear.
And typically, if you upgrade your life, you get something that you didn't have before, something easier, something better. I do believe that TM is that, and it will benefit a lot of people. And I do also think that in terms of life coaching and my life coaching, there's no doubt that TM is going to be an important tool in helping people, find happiness, because everybody's looking for happiness outside. They're looking for happiness outside, and the time is causing people to look back or forward, right? And looking back is often fears or, past pleasures that now are gone, just melancholy and many often misery things are in the past, right? In the future is fear based on conditions from the past as well. So, with TM, you're actually able all alone as a human being in your own environment to go to a place where you can find happiness, right? But I still want to go back and know more.
Yes,
about,
I will.
Yeah.
There are so many good points you are mentioning. It's just it's hard to resist myself to comment on some of those points.
It's a 5-hour podcast here, yes. Because there's so much in the topic, and in my view, this should be. If I look at a pyramid of what people should learn, I feel that TM should be in the bottom of the pyramid, right? At the first, like very similar to learning to read and write, because with this meditation state in the bottom, it's like having a turbo in your car, and having an air condition in a car which didn't have anything before except rolling down the windows, right? So you're getting a bigger toolbox to deal with life, not just But I still want to hear about the Maharishi episode, because I found that amazing when you met him the first time, and that experience, and the words he told you and the task he gave you. So listen up, guys, this is amazing, and I really want to share this story.
At the end of my teacher training course, which was in Italy at that time, in 95. And during the whole course, I was thinking about how can we take this to government level? I mean, this knowledge is so simple, just makes so much sense. It's so scientific. How can we make this more available to people? Mm. And at the end of our teacher training, we had a possibility to talk with Maharishi. Maharishi was connecting to the group at that time through phone. Okay. No video conferencing, no Zoom, nothing at that time.
Yeah.
So we were connecting to him, and actually we were expecting something like a big discussion, big sermon kind of thing that he gives, like a nice motivation speech or something like, we were expecting that. And then Maharishi kind of comes on the phone and he asks, okay, who could tell me what is Transcendental Meditation? And after studying like so many months and fully immersed in the mechanics and learning and doing exams and all this thing, suddenly this question from Maharishi himself, it kind of shocked everyone. But suddenly somebody went to the phone and explained, and then he asked, okay, who could tell me what is transcendental consciousness? Okay, now people were a little bit more at ease, and somebody went to the phone and explained. And then he said, okay, who was thinking to bring this knowledge to the government? And I was even well known that even in the conversation time during the lunch, I was always bringing this topic up, so everybody looked at me. So at that time, I went to the phone, and the administrator there said that, oh, here is Tony from Budapest, and he was thinking to bring this to the government. And Maharishi asked, so what would you tell to the president? And I was not prepared to speak at all, anything. I just, I didn't know at all what I should speak, but suddenly I reminded all what Maharshi taught about this topic. And one sentence came very clear in my mind. And I said, Maharshi, I would say to the president that the government is just the innocent mirror of the collective consciousness of the nation. So it's just a mirror. And then
again, the government is
just the innocent mirror of the collective consciousness of the nation. So we can talk about this, how what does it mean, but this in one sentence very much what Maharshi kind of emphasized. Yeah. And then Maharshi said, very good. And then I started to speak, and I kind of I said, that's good.
Yeah.
So
now you got it. You got over the hump.
Yes, I started to speak, and all that, how to influence the collective consciousness to bring more coherence, and started to explain all the mechanics. And then afterwards, Maharshi said, okay, go to the president and tell him that he doesn't deserve anymore to lead a problematic nation. That was his sentence, very direct. And I can explain to you later what happened. That actually, I think Maharshi wanted to open up for the president the possibility that all what we learned, that politics is always problematic, and all this partisan politics, and how it's not possible to actually satisfy all the people. It can be
people were suffering at the time too.
So it can be raised to a new level. And here's what happened. I was at 20 years old. I mean, I was not prepared to meet the president, actually. So,
but you were prepared.
But actually, you were. I did my best.
Yeah, but you were prepared.
Yeah,
you had the knowledge.
We had the knowledge. Yes.
Yeah, you had the key, right?
Exact. Knowledge is one main thing which you should always focus on in life, because knowledge brings you good results. If you don't have the knowledge, you are prone to mistakes.
It's the ultimate hack in life, like I used to say.
So I went home and I said, oh, what shall I do? Maharshi told me to go to the president.
Not many people are given that task at the age of 20, I can tell you that.
So, I mean, they will laugh at me or... So I wrote a letter. I wrote a letter to the prime minister. I would like to talk to the president. I have something to him, and no answer. So I kind of felt, okay, so this, I don't know how it will work. But when kind of an enlightened saint gives you some task, there is always something else going on in the background. So I was meditating one day in Budapest, in the TM Center in Budapest, and one lady came, one old singer lady came to the center to meditate. And we were meditating together. After meditation, she said, I know the president of Hungary. He's actually my friend. And I said, really? Because I have a message for him. Oh, so let me organize it for you.
Wow.
So within like a few days, I find myself in the big parliament building.
Wow, beautiful parliament building.
Beautiful parliament, one of the nicest in the world. Yeah. And suddenly we went like 40 TM teachers, went to see the president. We got 15 minutes to present our message. We have been there for 1.5 hours, basically. Wow. It was very pleasant meeting. He really liked us. And at the end, or towards the end, I said, Mr. President, I have a message for you from Maharshi Mahesh Yogi, because we had to lay down the basic foundation, what is TM, scientific background, and all this thing. And when he heard that, he became very interested that, so what is the message? As if nothing mattered what we said before. He was interested in what is the message. And I told him that the message is that Maharishi said that you don't deserve to lead anymore a problematic nation. And when these words were coming out, it was not like how I say it to you. At that moment, at that time, it was like very powerful. It's
like an arrow.
Something like an arrow, like a soft arrow, which went straight to the heart. And the president was sitting and sitting and sitting. I mean, I was thinking, what shall I do? Shall I say a word or not? But he was just kind of watching into the space or in the distance. And like 40 seconds or some very long time passed. And then he said, you know how good it would be to lead a non-problematic nation. But my hands are tied. You see, and then I realized what Maharishi taught, that the government can only do what people deserve, what the current state of the collective consciousness. Otherwise, individually, they really like the message, they really enjoy, even some of the government leaders are meditating and you don't even know, but there are some good stories about how some government leader introduced to their military and cabinet the meditation technique. But then I realized that basically we have to work more with the people because from the ground up, like we have to make this change.
Well, what do you think is like the question everybody's asking is what did he mean by that? What is your interpretation of what he meant?
What Maharishi?
What the
president?
Yeah, the president. Sorry.
The president. I think what he meant that he cannot do it. He cannot introduce into the education system.
Do you have any theories? Of course, it will be speculation, but based on your knowledge and cultural understanding, do you think it was religion? Do you think it was?
At that time, I think it was just too much. Even at that time, the word meditation was
scary.
You know, are you meditating? Really? Is everything okay with you? And
you end up in the mental institution.
So at that time, it was not such a trendy. You know, now all these big stars, Hugh Jackman, Clint Eastwood, David Lynch, and
all doing TM,
Oprah and Jerry Seinfeld, and they are all very public about how much help they got from TM. But at that time, it was not like that. No. It was, and anyway, TM is more, you are kind of practicing to yourself. It's not really like, it's a self-referral practice. You don't want to convince anyone or anything like that. So it's difficult to tell why, but sometimes I do feel in my TM teaching activity as if we, at certain moment, we hit an invisible wall. And it's getting better.
Critical mass, more or less.
Yeah, when the system reaches its point, when this is how much it can handle, no more at this point. So I think that was the case. We need to test sometimes governments how much ready through and Maharishi kind of indicated that don't give up on governments. Just from time to time test it, how the collective consciousness of the nation, because after some time, when the collective consciousness is kind of more conducive, all these evolutionary knowledge will become very much widely available. It's no question about it. There's no reason.
It will be in the school system in 10, 20 years, right? I think so, because there's this wave going on. More people are knowing about it. Individuals who are practicing it are able to then share it to the world, right? Through social media. And you have some powerful individuals out there reaching millions of people, right? While before, you actually had to have the editor-in-chief of let's say, a newspaper, or you have to have the school system head of education who has to, believe in that knowledge in order to, because he's controlling the whole educational system, right? Or this committee or whatever. So I think, this individuality is actually one of the big benefits about sharing.
And Sigurd,
TM.
It's actually happening already. There are many schools who are introducing consciousness-based education. It's Marsha worked a lot on the principles and on the practices of this consciousness-based education system. It's basically that you are not only studying, in the education system, again, let's say, here's the student, happy student, studying some material. Nice, thick book.
You're good to draw, man.
So this is the story of education. You need a student, you need good knowledge, and you need the process of transferring the knowledge in an effective way. And you can see what current education system is mainly emphasizing. It's more about information. And very little is taught even about how you gain the information, how you study properly.
How to study. Oof.
Nobody
One
taught
of the most
you.
powerful things that if I wouldn't have understood how to study for me and really spent a lot of time on how to accumulate quick in my brain. For example, I need to write, right? And extract information first. And then I repeat that and I draw it and I'm very visual, right? Because I have a more visual mind. But exactly, nobody's teaching kids how to learn. They just send them to school and then they go into this automatic program.
And they are expected to perform top level.
I know.
So it's actually not so
good.
Encouraging.
No.
So some schools already, they start to move towards some practices how to learn effectively. But I think in university sometimes you get courses like that, but not really in high school.
It's too late.
Not really.
There's research there that shows certain ways of learning are more effective than others, and
So it should have been done earlier. But even then, about the student, about the teacher, nobody cares. Currently in the education system, it's like a missing element. Consciousness of the student that he becomes more receptive to the knowledge, more sharp, memory becoming better. It's not really, because there was no real technique for that. Maybe some, but both the teachers and the students often suffer of the consequences. If you add this extra element, dealing with the consciousness of the people, not only developing the subject, but you are developing the consciousness of the student, then the whole experience is different. I've seen reports in consciousness-based schools, and there are many of them already in US, even in India. There is a lot of schools introducing this consciousness-based and meditation. Is one of the tools they use. But both the students and the teachers, before starting the day and after of the day of learning, they just close with meditation. It's very, very effective. And what happens? Students are eager to learn. Teachers are very happy teaching. The flow of knowledge is much smooth. If the mind of the student is very much upset, or there's a lot of turmoil, a lot of background noise, how do you expect the knowledge to flow easily? The teacher is upset. He always has to manage the kids. Half of the lesson is about how, don't do that.
Rules and enforcing rules, right?
Enforcing rules. Compare that to the situation where you can actually, the students want to get the knowledge, and they are actually showing up hands, asking questions, and the whole knowledge going back and forth. Teachers really have to prepare because they get so many questions.
Wow.
But they enjoy a lot. I think this will transform education like nothing, because more and more information is anyway becoming available. You just with a few clicks, all the information you get anyway. The shift will be going from information to consciousness and develop a student. And by the time he comes out from education, he's almost enlightened, you know. Education should be for enlightenment. That's what Maharishi's main principle was. Education is for enlightenment. You can get a job training, no problem, because you need jobs in society. But during the process, make use of that time, for the very precious time of the student, to develop their nervous system, actually to their full potential. It's very important.
For sure. It's like trimming the race car. It's like, you know, they can, the vehicle is the mind and the body.
That's
right?
all we got.
It is what we got. So you're actually creating a more powerful vehicle, and a CPU in a sense. There's a separate dimension there, which the school system is not really dealing with at all in many cases. Of course, it's becoming better, but I do also think there's this lag, right? The school system is 20, 30 years behind. If you look at what marketing school is teaching now, they're 5-10 years behind what is actually happening in the forefront, right? And it's natural because it's a big system. It's a lot of people involved, you know, that need to have the right knowledge. And there's a big system to create, from books to equipment to, if it's music studios for teaching music, you know, things have to be upgraded very quickly, very often, because everything is changing so quick. So, but this doesn't change. This is an ancient method. So
it was like that 5,000 years ago, and it
exactly.
will be, the consciousness will have the same structure. There will be more excited levels, and there will be less excited, and there is the silent base of all activity, that pure intelligence, pure wakefulness. And some governments already start to recognize this. I think in Brasilia, for example, Brazil, the education system gave the possibility to introduce to public schools all the consciousness-based education. Just there is not enough teachers at the moment to handle all the demand. So we have to prepare, because you see, teaching TM is not. You have to go through the proper training to be able to teach it. And
I just want to point out that the teaching of TM is a lot of training, because you're having a big responsibility. You need to understand a lot of things that are happening, but the execution, the practice of TM itself is so simple in my experience, and that's also what you've been telling me all along, and that's what I'm hearing from other people that are practicing TM. So I just want to point that out to the listeners and viewers, that, you know, there's no easier system to meditate. It's not hard work. It's very natural, and you will descend very much automatically. It's not like, okay, you're not so good at that, or you're really good at that. It's yeah, you're a human, great, you have a mind, yes, okay, then this will work, really. So, but yes, back to the training. The training is quite advanced. I think it's a couple of years or something, right?
Yeah, many hours of, maybe 10,000 hours of meditation goes into by the time you become a teacher. And usually the training is somewhere, sometimes in Thailand and Bali now, or different location, wherever there is a demand for that. But it has to be done properly. It's not, this is in some sense very simple, but also very delicate. So it's not something which came out from California, let's say 6 months ago.
No,
this is not, it's an age-old technique. It has to be taught properly in order, if we want to have the proper result. It's not.
But that's very much the smart thing that I think that Maharishi did, is that he's streamlining it. He wants to keep it the same way. He doesn't want to pollute it along the way, right? He wants to modernize it. I know that you guys are working on apps and stuff like that to you know, yes, those things we can change, the tools, the channels, right? But the philosophy itself needs to remain from generation to generation. If it's not taught correctly, you'll end up with changes to the method itself. And that's where I think is quite fascinating in the training, which is that, you know, Maharishi is still a part of that through videos, through calls. We are so lucky now that we can actually see him, hear him. We have video footage now, which if you look at the old days, you only had books, right? Which is great. I love books too, but you have that extra dimension of actually being there and hearing his exact words, which I found very, very valuable and very touching.
makes it less prone to the loss of knowledge.
Yes.
Maharishi explained that the knowledge at some point has the tendency to get lost. Yeah. Because the teacher speaks from his level of consciousness and the student can only hear it on his level of consciousness. And there is prone to have some different interpretations and all these things. So the teacher has to raise the student to his level of consciousness for some knowledge to be understood properly.
Yep.
So that's why the techniques are there actually. Now, with the videos, it will be it will take much more time until the knowledge will get lost. And one thing Maharishi asked from the teachers of TM is just keep the teaching pure. Yeah. Because in order for the effectiveness of the teaching, it has to be proper. You know that little game they used to play in the kindergarten, that you whisper a few sentences to the first kid, and then he has to whisper the same sentences to the other kid, and he has to whisper the same. And by the time it comes back,
it's not the same.
It's a different story, and everybody is laughing. And it's such a good joke. It's a good joke, and in this circumstance,
like that. It pollutes, but it changes it.
Yes, but when you are talking about a life changing and transforming technology,
it's not good to change it.
It's not so good to change it. So
it's like a recipe. You don't want to change
technology.
The milk with water, right? If you have 2 deciliters of milk, it's 2 deciliters of milk. So it has to be accurate. If you make a cake and you change some elements of it, you won't get that cake, right? Yep.
This is why we always try to make sure in whatever way this knowledge is given, either through media or through videos or anything, we try to preserve and go back to the source always and preserve the knowledge so that everybody gets the full benefit of it.
Yep.
That's what we would like to do, that everybody gets enlightened. Enlightenment and all the benefits, maybe enlightenment sounds like a big word, but only because it just means using your full potential. It's nothing really extraordinary. It was extraordinary because the technology was not there to develop it, and it was rare. But the technologies are becoming more and more available. There will be more and more people in higher states of consciousness. People are using 3 states of consciousness: waking, dreaming, and sleep, what we discussed. Now we were talking a little bit about the 4th state, pure consciousness. But actually there is 3 more. So Maharishi was always talking 7 states of consciousness is what available for human nervous system. And life is lived differently in different states of consciousness. In dreaming, you have a completely different experience than in sleep.
The best selling points for TM is in reality, because a lot of people, especially practical people like me, I love numbers just like you, they're skeptic, right? They're skeptic against something where, they're not really sure. And, people are skeptic. They're skeptic to religion. They're skeptic to a lot of things. So I think, but in reality, what's coming out of this, which I've also been looking through in terms of a lot of things, material you sent me, because I love science, right? Is this is scientifically proven. Like if you're taking a brain scan and measuring the brain waves, you will see different things. And this is confirmed by scientists, by professors, people who are skeptic day too. And then when they see the results of whatever is impacting the human mind and impacting the physiology of the person, they're really shocked, right? You've mentioned several studies to me, but I do think that for you guys listening right now, if you're struggling with, for example, sleep problems, I've had sleep problems. I've been taking sleeping pills in my youth, in my teens. My brain is always running, is always thinking. It's very high speed. And this is a good thing when I'm solving problems, which I tend to do very well, and build businesses and have success and learn knowledge. But, it does have an impact when you're supposed to, sleep and issues like this. I have had periods where I've been depressed. So I think, in terms of the benefits of what TM can give you and actually meditation in general, but TM being the Ferrari, in my view, of these meditation views.
I think so.
is literally you're sleeping better, right? Like I'm having a much less interrupted sleep. I'm, easier to fall asleep. My body is more rested. I'm able to see problems more from a distance without getting lost into the details, and, less fight or flight in a sense, right? I'm not going there as often as I did. It also gives you this extra layer of color, very much like, if you see a very, pale, like through fog, right? You see through fog, it's very pale and gray, and then the sun is shining, and then everything is bright and green. And that's kind of how I describe the experience of moving from not being aware and mindful to actually, being present in the moment. It's very, very powerful. So to everybody out there who are struggling with issues, yes, still go to your psychiatrist, your doctors. Yes, you might need medication, but the investment of what it takes to learn this method is literally 4 days of a trainer and a coach.
And what you said is very, very good, that it doesn't require a belief. I have taught from all people, all kinds of religion, cultural background, all kinds of ages. It works the same. It doesn't matter if you are Christian or Hindu or.
You need to be human.
It's just human, right? Human nervous system.
Yep, it's human.
And if you don't believe in it, even in TM, you don't believe in the result, it's not a requirement. Even if you don't believe, it will not work less for you. Even if you believe in it, it will not work for you much more. You just have to do it. You have to do it, and you get the benefits. And it's available. So now it's available, I think, in 142 countries. And Archie did something really wonderful. So it's available in 142 countries, in basically every major city. There will be either a TM center or a teacher who can train you. Everybody, what is good about TM is taught very systematically, and very much the same way all over the world.
Tony, last question. If people want to learn this, let's say they want to even look at more videos about that before they start learning, where can they go to get more information? Where can they contact because we have listeners and viewers all over the world. Where do they go?
tm.org.
T-M or tm.org?
TM.
TM.
Without the dash.
Got it, without the dash.
Like Transcendental Meditation.
Yep.
.org. And David Lynch Foundation. .org, I think. Or
davidlynchfoundation.org or .com. So really, Tony, it was great to be on the show. Thank you. And to anybody out there, first of all, if you're wondering why we're not using masks and why we're sitting so close, Tony's here 1 meter away from me, is we have our test done. There's, I do encourage everybody watching that, yes, use your mask, keep distance. That's the most effective tool. Wash your hands carefully. We are not at risk. We are taking this threat very seriously. Wherever you are, maybe in your country it's less, maybe it's more. But I just want to, lead by example and say that, we normally use masks when we go out. We bring our antibac. But right now we're able to have this amazing podcast because we do have negative tests. Now you watch this podcast and hopefully you have that little bit boost of encouragement and inspiration, right, to get going. But, action is where the magic lies. It's not about thinking about it, it's actually putting it into your calendar. Right now, if you're interested, go to tm.org, David Lynch Foundation, find an instructor locally. The investment is like this. It is like no money at all in comparison to how it can upgrade your life.